Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's webinar, How to Turn Conflict into Collaboration in Project Teams, presented by our Head of Management Solutions here at Educate 360, Brent Nair. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting and moderating today's session. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be emailing you a copy of this recording after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 and Project Management Academy are so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Brent.
Thanks, Mariela, and welcome everyone. It is a partly cloudy 75 degrees here in Memphis, Tennessee. So I hope you all are having a great Wednesday. And too bad we didn't have the hot mic going before Mariela started the call because we were discussing, we really needed to get some intro music for the webinar before we got going. And so, we were kind of discussing back and forth, and it wasn't quite coming into a conflict. However, that's how conflicts start. We'll be discussing something, and one side or one person says, "No, I want this," or the other person says, "No, I want this." And before we know it, we are in a full conflict over what we want. So today we're going to talk about how we can turn conflict into collaboration in teams, possibly even discuss how to avoid some conflict. And once we're in conflict, what we can do to steer it into collaboration. So with that being said, let's go ahead and kick it off. So first off, what are causes or what are potential sources of conflict in a project or on a project? Well, almost anything, whether it's what you want to eat for lunch or whether your project teammate chews gum during a meeting and it smacks and that sets you off. Anything can become a conflict. But let's talk about task conflicts for one. How we should work, how work should be accomplished, how long it takes. When we have individuals that are very proud of their work, which all of us are, and are very opinionated, which most of us are, me included, we believe that the way that we are saying it is the best way. The way that we're proposing it is the best. And right then, our framing, our internal framing, if we believe our way is the best, we've lost sight of what we value. We've lost sight of how we approach any situation. It's not what's the best. What is going to provide the most value. And when I say what's the best, I mean the best in my opinion. Because as we know, everyone has a different opinion. There's different ways to accomplish everything. Relationship conflicts between team members. We're coming up into championship season for men's and women's college basketball. So we'll have conflicts around, oh, my team's better than your team. And somebody will wear another team's jersey, and that might set somebody off. We just finished the Olympics. There's conflicts around who's the best skater, hockey team, etc. When we take that approach that there can only be one, that's a reference to the Highlander movie, by the way, which just has a new reboot, supposedly. If there can be only one, then that means that none of us win. Really, that's what is the issue. And then lastly, process conflicts. Who did what? Who's responsible for what? Who's accountable? All of those components. If we think about it, one of the worst things to do is to have a group be responsible for something. Because if we have a group being responsible for everything or for a thing, then no one is responsible because I'm going to say, Mariella, I thought you were doing that. And Mariella's going to say, Brent, I thought you were doing that. And we're both pointing our fingers this way, and it leads to conflict. So these are sources of conflict. These are the three big buckets we'll put them in as we think about a project and how it works. So keeping these three frames in mind, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about why conflict matters. Conflict's important. Let me rephrase that. Positive conflict is important. It's growth. It is ability to be able to see something in a different way. It provides an opportunity for innovation. All of those are elements of why conflict matters. Conflict actually can prevent schedule delays. If we think about unresolved conflict, it can cause project delays, bottlenecks. Well, I thought you were doing it, so I didn't do it. Well, now it's not getting done, and now we have a conflict. So if we have a conflict, we need to resolve it so we can prevent a schedule delay. Team morale. Unresolved conflicts lead to resentments. Resentments lead to anger. Resentment leads to frustration. Resentment leads to a whole lot of stuff. And so if we're able to address a conflict early, it keeps motivation for the team, I believe, on track, maybe even at a high level, we hope. And then improve project outcomes. If we resolve our conflicts, our overall project outcomes are going to be better. If we're having a discussion on whose way is the best, what we can do is we can look at all sides of it and we can determine which way is the best. And when we do that, we're improving our project outcomes. Now, the challenge is, as the project manager, project leader, team facilitator, or whatever title you have today, our challenge is to figure out, how do we get into those conflicts? How do we know when to facilitate? How do we know when to step in? A lot of us want to avoid conflicts. We want to bury our heads in the sand, so to speak, and pretend that conflicts don't happen. That could be because we come from a conflict avoidant background, or we learned early conflicts cause pain, either physical or emotional pain. When I think about growing up in my household, conflict was a painful situation. So only through experience, therapy, um, getting a degree in counseling, was I able to be comfortable with conflict. Doesn't mean I enjoy it. Doesn't mean I seek out conflict. Today, I take what I've learned and I realize that conflict is important for growth. And so thinking about that, we want to make sure we have a growth mindset as it relates to conflict. So when we want to approach conflict, where do we start? Well, first off, we want to understand what is happening. We want to create psychologically safe environments. We want to be able to have a place where team members can share what they think without fear of someone calling you a dumb doo-doo poopy head or something similar. So that starts with active listening. And active listening means just that. I am listening. I am not trying to formulate my opinion so my opinion is better. Or I'm not trying to formulate a response so I don't have to do the work. Or any of those. Active listenings means I'm listening. I'm paraphrasing. I'm saying back to you what I heard. I'm understanding your perspective or your perspectives. It's neither yes or no. It a lot of times is not that binary. A lot of times it's yes and. That yes and is so important when we think about conflict management and conflict resolution. If I have a different opinion, I can say yes. And I think this is also important. So I'm not discounting what was said previously, I'm adding to it. Clear dialogue and feedback. Clarity is so important in a relationship. Clarity is so important in a project. Our projects, our work today is so laden, so heavy with buzzwords and jargon. Circle back, let's put a pin in that, etc. All of those words that people use we to evoke something actually may not evoke the same thing, especially for individuals who have come from different backgrounds where English is not the first language, especially American slang is not the first language. So, communication is making sure that we understand, we feed back what's being heard, that we're able to communicate in a way that provides clarity. If I don't understand something, I ask or I ask for clarification. Or I might say something like, I heard you say, is that what you meant? One of the big things that we use in project management is or people will use, well, I want you to own this project, or you're going to drive this. Big buzzwords around that. Can we ask people, what do you mean by own this project? Please help me define that. What do you mean by drive this project? Please help me define that. Here's what I believe drive means, or here's what I believe own means. And Karina, yes, I definitely have a bit of a people pleaser in me. I am definitely a people pleaser. So we'll come to that at the end. Keep that question there. And lastly, resolution, mutual understanding, mutual solutions. That goes back to the yes and. It's not an either or a I'm the winner. When we focus on only having a winner, I believe that a lot of people are left out. And in a project, which is a group activity, which is full of stakeholders, both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. My job as a project manager is to make sure that there isn't one singular winner. It's a collective. It's a collaborative effort. So with active listening, communication, and resolution, I'm setting the foundation for conflict management. So if we have goals, and let's just say I put 4 goals up here, and these goals can vary. But for this webinar today, I put these 4 goals up there. They're not in order of importance. Number 1 is not there because it's the most important, nor is team cohesion the last important one. It's not. They're all important, and I'm just going to go in order. And I'm going to start actually with the letter B. So I'll go with the budget impact. If we can't resolve a conflict, we definitely have a budget impact. Whether we have resources that because we can't decide what to do, we pick the wrong one, or we have individuals on our team that can't get along, and that has a resource cost. That has a human cost. Team cohesion. If we don't get along, if the team is not cohesive, we're disjointed. Remember, it's called a project because we're working on it together. It is a group endeavor. It is a very relational activity. I've said it before on our webinars. Project management is relational, not just task driven. And without that relational element, without that team cohesion, we won't get anything done. Innovation opportunity. We want to be innovative. That's why we do projects. We innovate. That's the one of the goals of a project is to do something that's innovative, whether it's a new idea, a new product line, a new widget, whatever the case may be. So it's good to have conflict. It's good to have discussions about how, as well as the why, in order to spark that innovation and that creativity. And then the last one, timeline disruption. If we can't decide on anything, if we have analysis paralysis, we don't get anything done. Our timelines are thrown off. So conflict can impact our project and our goals. So when we think about that, we want to integrate conflict management into our project. So how do we do that? The first and best way, if I say so myself, is to make sure that we establish ground rules. We commonly refer to this as a team charter. How do we act? How do we treat each other? What are our working hours? When won't we work? Why do we do what we do? Which flavor of breakfast cereal we want in the break room? I don't, all of those things we can put in. But the team charter, the ground rules, the team norms allow us to structure how we will engage with each other. Doesn't mean that we still won't have conflict. Doesn't mean that we have to make a list 30 miles long. But we want to say things like everyone has the opportunity to speak. Everyone opinion matters. Team charter, team ground rules. If you're not doing those today, start immediately. Implement early warning systems. Use regular check-ins. How's everybody doing? If you work in an agile or hybrid environment, your daily stand-ups are a perfect opportunity for this. This is where issues and blockers and impediments can come in. If you don't work in a daily stand-up and you, or excuse me, in an agile or hybrid and you work in a predictive or traditional waterfall environment, implement this. Do a team check-in once a week. When I've done construction projects, one of the things that I do is almost every day, depending upon the job site, but most job sites, we always have a morning safety briefing. Excuse me. During that morning safety briefing is when I do this. And I will say, on construction job sites, I've had individuals who were pestered or whatever you want to say, picked on, whatever, that blew up into actual physical violence. So be aware of that. Don't ask questions. And then lastly, document and share your learnings. Retrospectives, lessons learned. This worked on this project. Let's implement it going forward in the next project. Or this didn't work. Let's do that. Kelly, we'll get to that at the end. I'm saving some time for questions and answers. Thank you for the questions. Please keep them coming. So strategies, conflict resolution. How do we do it? There's really four main strategies that I'm going to discuss. The first one is avoid. Avoid is where I walk away. It's usually best used if it's a trivial issue or you need a temporary cooling period. It's also perfect if you don't have all the answers. And it's perfectly okay to say, you know what? I really hear what you're saying. I'd like to think about that before we come back and make a decision. You may also use it if you have two team members, excuse me, if you have two team members that are arguing or disagreeing or conflicting, you may say, "Hey, I want you two to take a minute and just let's go outside and walk around, cool off for a minute. Maybe not use cool off because that might spark something in someone else. Let's go to competing up ahead." So competing, that's when you say a quick decision needs to be made, unpopular actions necessarily. So if someone is competing, mine's the best, or you know, um, I think mine's the best. If we're having a competing style, then we're not collaborating. So I purposely did competing and avoiding because they're kind of the opposites of each other. Whereas compromising and collaborating are two of the best. We do want to collaborate. We do want to compromise. So what's the difference between the two? Compromising is when, for me, compromising is when both sides give something up. That's a compromise. Well, we're ordering pizza and somebody doesn't want onions and somebody does, and somebody doesn't want mushrooms and somebody does. Well, we'll say no pizza then with mushrooms or onions. Compromising. Some people may a risk is it could create that lose-lose situation. Let's go up to collaborating, which is the best one, in my opinion. Collaborating is when everyone understands the why, what we value. And what we value is most important here. And so let's work on building a collaborative solution that encompasses as much as we can from every opinion. So those are the four styles when we think about that. And of course, as we go through some practical techniques here for you to go through is formalize an agreement. If you have an agreement, formalize it. Well, let's actually start at the top and work our way down. Focus on the problem, not personalities, not people. Generate multiple solutions. Let's look at what we can do. Evaluate using objective criteria. Maybe have a third party look at it, a mediator, arbitrator. And then finally, formalize it. Document your resolutions, clear action items, and there's that clarity again, so people know what to do. So these are some really good. And by the way, this at the end of it, Mariella is going to put up the link to this presentation, and so you all have an opportunity to see these slides as well. Active listening, clear communication, emotional intelligence. If you are feeling off, if you are feeling scared, if you are feeling threatened in any type of a conflict resolution situation, understand that and maybe take a pause. You want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well. And then remain neutral as we go through this. Now, best practices and takeaways, prevent. A lot of things can be avoided if you have clear communication. Identify the issues early, address them as they come up. Don't let them fester unless you need to say, hey, we're going to have a cooling off period. And then lastly, learn, document your outcomes. At Educate 360, we have awesome personal leadership, conflict resolution, navigating difficult conversations, a ton of classes that can help you become more comfortable in these difficult situations. So keep that in mind. Go to training at educate360.com. Excuse me, training at educate360.com. And Mariella is going to put that link in the chat. Look at our catalog, look at what we have. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to some questions. Um, Let me see what we've got in chat. All right,
Yeah.
I think,
You got it?
yep, I got it. Okay,
Perfect.
so Kar Karina, I hope I pronounced that correctly. What about if at heart you're a little bit of a people pleaser? Well, first off, I'm glad you're a little bit of a people pleaser. We all have that in us, unless we're a sociopath or a psychopath. Even then, we might for nefarious reasons. We're wired to be there. We're wired to be a people pleaser. So keep that in mind. And if I know that I am a people pleaser, then I know I need to say, hey, let's be objective in the response that I'm going to take, or let's be objective in how I resolve this. And I need to, in other words, I need to elevate myself above trying to please one party or the other. And keep in mind, what do I value about this engagement? What do I value about this project? What do I value about this conflict resolution that or this conflict that we're trying to resolve? Kelly says we have an issue where only two people ever speak up. Even those two people are ostracized because they do speak up. You know that's tough. And I think the biggest thing for me, the easiest way to begin to resolve that issue is where when we're having discussions, our team charter rule states everyone must weigh in, everyone must provide their thoughts before a decision is made. And then we need to make sure that when everyone does provide those thoughts, that nobody says, that's a stupid idea. No one gets to poo poo on my parade. So we make sure that we address that. And if it does happen, we point that out. We say, remember, rule number 7, no poo pooing on parade. So keep that in mind. Um, Other questions? We have that, but there is no accountability. Okay. Well, then the question is, what do you mean by accountability? Are you saying that you're holding everybody accountable to speak and they're not? If that's the case, Kelly, then you may want to, let me put it in I statement, I would talk to each of them individually and say, it's important for our team dynamic for you to speak up. How can I help you feel comfortable? Is there an underlying issue that I can help resolve? If we're saying accountability is their participation, then we think about that.
Alrighty,
Hope that helped.
let's.
Any other questions? We have a minute or two.
Yeah, I think we have enough time for this last question that just came in. I think self-ego also plays a crucial role in damaging any conflict resolution. How can you manage that? Great question.
Well, that goes back to our emotional intelligence, and I think that self-ego is always there. Um, Tons of books have been written about it. And there's two ways that I handle that. First off, I want to make sure that as I'm going into a situation, I've identified what do I value? What's the value outcome of this engagement? What's the value outcome? And the second thing is, as I'm participating in this, I am pausing before responding. Viktor Frankl um, wrote, between every stimulus and response is an opportunity to pause. And what he meant by that was, before I speak, I'm going to pause in order to collect my thoughts, make sure my ego is not in the way. Because there's tons of times where I want to seem like I'm the most important person in the world. And so, yeah, self ego always stays there, but we do keep it in chat. We hopefully keep it in check as much as we can. Mariella, we had a request to repost the links again, please.
Got it done and dusted.
All right.
Perfect. Alrighty, well, thank you all so much for your fantastic questions and for joining us here today. I know we had a lot covered, but we also have so many exciting webinars coming up. So I did drop the link in to our next Project Management Academy webinar. And if you wanted to take a peek at the other webinars, go right ahead. There's a lot of really helpful leadership, technical stuff that Brent mentioned earlier. So thank you again so much for joining us. And of course, thank you so much, Brent, for all of your
Thank you,
fantastic
Mariella.
insight.
And
Yeah,
please connect with us on LinkedIn if you'd like. Thanks, everybody.
sounds great. Alrighty, have a fantastic rest of your week, everyone, and we'll catch you all on the next one. Bye for now.
Bye.